Welcome in, everyone. I'm so glad you're joining us today. If you're listening, you are the learner. And, well, you're here because you want to get deep knowledge quickly, you
I
know?
mean, without all the without
Well,
the information overload.
exactly. You want multiple perspectives, but you want it to actually make sense. So we're doing a deep dive today into something pretty intense. We're looking at excerpts from a lecture by clinical psychologist Jordan B. Peterson, and it's titled, How to Become Who You Are Meant to Be.
Yeah, and it's a massive topic. It
Yeah.
focuses heavily on the biblical story of Abraham, but um, it frames the conceptualization of life as this grand romantic adventure.
Right, but our mission today, and this is what makes this specific source so fascinating, is to unpack a journey that is wildly winding because it doesn't start with, sunshine and positive
No,
affirmations.
not at all.
It starts in the absolute darkest corners of human psychology. We're talking maximum security prisons, totalitarian regimes, and it climbs all the way up from there to ancient religious narratives to answer this one huge question, which is, how do you escape the comfort of an unlived life to become who you are truly meant to be?
It's a huge question.
It is. So, okay, let's unpack this because before we can talk about a life of adventure and good, the source argues we have to look at the absolute worst of humanity. We have to start with this dark gateway, confronting our actual capacity for evil.
Yeah, and the narrative connection here is really jarring. We don't begin self-actualization with positivity. The source makes this super clear point that to understand the light of the Abraham story, you literally have to understand the dark first.
And the speaker's own intellectual journey into this started really young, right? Like he was 13?
Yep, 13 years old.
Yeah.
And he was just completely shocked by the atrocities of Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia. He started obsessively reading Alexander Solzhenitsyn and George Orwell.
Just really heavy stuff for a 13-year-old.
Right. But the core question for him wasn't political. It wasn't about economics or military strategy. It was deeply, fundamentally psychological.
Like, how could normal people do this?
Exactly. How could totally normal people commit unimaginably terrible acts and this is the terrifying part, actually enjoy them?
Which leads to this absolutely wild, pivotal visit he takes as a young academic to a maximum security prison in Edmonton.
Oh, the Cape story.
Yes, the Cape. I mean, I was reading this and I had to pause. He describes walking into a gym full of murderers, rapists, violent offenders, weightlifters, and he's wearing a ridiculous Victorian Dracula cape made of wolf fur.
Yeah, he bought it in Portugal, I think.
Right, and he just wears it into a maximum security prison. It sounds almost absurd, you know? Like,
Yeah.
why would you wear that into a den of literal predators?
Well, looking at it through a psychological lens, like a Jungian perspective, it makes total sense as a subconscious manifestation of the persona.
Right, like a shield.
Exactly. He's this young academic guy walking into a hyper-violent, hyper-masculine environment. His psyche essentially demanded a costume. He was projecting this monstrous exterior just to ward off the actual monsters in the room.
That makes so much sense. So he's in this gym, totally out of his depth, and he has these two terrifying encounters that really solidify his understanding of malevolence.
Yeah, the first one is just chillin'.
So it's this guy who comes up to him, right? And they go out to the exercise yard.
Right, and the speaker says this guy looked completely nondescript, totally normal looking, nothing menacing about him at all. But later, he finds out why this guy is in maximum security.
And this is the part that is just, it's so dark.
It is. This totally normal-looking guy had execution-style murdered two police officers. He was pulled over, he had a gun, and he shot them both in the back of the head. And the detail that stuck with the speaker was that one of the officers was actively pleading for his life, begging him to think of his two little children, and the guy shot him right in the middle of that plea.
Okay, I have to push back a little here on what the source implies with this because, psychologists talk all the time about the dark triad, psychopathy, narcissism, all that.
Right, the biological anomaly.
Yeah, like we know there are distinct neurological differences in the brains of violent psychopaths. So aren't some people just biologically wired for malevolence, whereas the average person genuinely isn't? Like, if this normal-looking guy is capable of executing two cops, does the source imply that civilization is literally just a thin veneer? That any of us could be the monster?
That is exactly the central thesis, yes.
Wow.
And I know it's a terrifying realization. The expert synthesis of this text is that we use things like the dark triad as a shield to protect ourselves. The chilling realization the speaker had, and it took him a long time to process this, was that he himself was capable of these acts.
Wait, really? He admitted that about himself?
Yes. And he draws on Solzhenitsyn for this idea that the line between good and evil cuts right through every human heart, until you realize that you could have been the Auschwitz camp guard
Hmm.
and not necessarily Oskar Schindler. You literally do not truly understand evil.
I mean, that is just a brutal mirror to hold up to yourself.
It really is. And the second encounter he has in the prison reinforces this from a different angle.
Oh, the card player.
Right. So he meets this psychopathic narcissist in the psychologist's office. This guy can take a shuffled deck of cards, riffle through them, and perfectly memorize them in seconds.
Like a savant.
Exactly. Brilliant. Calculating. But then the speaker learns that this same guy had cornered a suspected snitch in the prison and just battered the guy's leg to a bloody pulp with a lead pipe.
Jeez.
So you have the banal evil of the first guy and the theatrical, calculating evil of the second guy. And sitting there, the speaker suddenly realizes this isn't just history in a textbook. It's real, and it's human.
Which leads to him having this really disturbing moment back in his normal life, right? This intrusive thought.
The Penn story. He's sitting in a university classroom, totally normal environment, looking at the back of the neck of a student sitting in front of him. And he gets this sudden, intense, intrusive thought to just take his pen and stab the classmate in the neck.
Which, I mean, we've all had weird intrusive thoughts, like the call of the void, when you're driving and think, what if I swerved into traffic?
Exactly. Most people just bury that in shame. But the source emphasizes the why here. Understanding those dark impulses is actually the very first step to spiritual maturity.
Because it makes the problem of evil personal.
Right. It takes it out of the abstract. If you don't acknowledge your own capacity for destruction, you can't control it.
So if the monster is inside the individual, how does it scale up? I mean, how do we move from one person having dark thoughts or one psychopath in a prison to a full-blown totalitarian state?
Well, this is where we move into the architecture of totalitarianism. And the source argues that it does not happen in one giant leap.
Right. It's not just a switch that flips overnight.
No, it happens in 10,000 tiny steps. And every single step is rationalized through silence, through acquiescence, or just a desire to hide and not cause trouble.
Now, I do want to bring up a quick impartiality note here for the listener. The speaker uses compliance during the COVID pandemic, as well as critiques of modern quote-unquote woke churches as his examples of how easily people follow the pathological mob. And we want to explicitly remind you, the listener, that this deep dive is not taking a political stance or endorsing these specific comparisons. We're just impartially exploring the speaker's argument about human conformity and moral drift.
That's a great distinction to make, because regardless of the specific examples, the underlying mechanism he's pointing to is deception. The source defines a totalitarian state not just as a government run by thugs, but as a condition that exists when every single person in society lies to themselves and to others about absolutely everything.
Yeah, it's like a boiling frog scenario. You know, you don't notice the temperature rising. It's these 10,000 micro-cowardices that just compound into this massive societal tragedy.
And he connects this directly to Friedrich Nietzsche's prophecy.
The death of God concept.
Right. Nietzsche warned that the collapse of transcendent values, the death of God, would lead directly to ideologically driven mass murder. And the source points out that this led exactly to the deaths of 100 million people in the 20th century. When you remove a transcendent structure, ideological possession rushes in to fill the void.
Okay, so if you acknowledge that this abysmal evil is real and it's scalable, what do?
This is the vital pivot point of the lecture. The moment you acknowledge that this evil is real, you instantly necessitate a transcendent good.
And how does he define that?
The good is simply defined as whatever gets you the furthest possible distance away from that evil.
But how do we navigate that? Because we need a map, right? If we want to move toward that transcendent good, how do we know which way to go?
Well, the source makes a really strong argument here that science and facts cannot be that map.
Which is going to upset a lot of modern thinkers because we are constantly told to follow the science.
Right. But the phrase, follow the science, it's critiqued here as fundamentally flawed. Because science is descriptive. It tells you what the landscape is made of, but it is not a navigational tool.
He uses that desert analogy, right?
Yes. If you are dropped in the middle of a desert, facts can tell you the temperature of the sand or your rate of dehydration. But facts cannot tell you which direction to walk.
That makes total sense. Science is neutral.
Exactly. To navigate reality, you require a structure of value to prioritize your attention. The world is too complex to just absorb everything neutrally.
He talks about being on a restaurant date to explain this.
Yeah, think about being in a noisy restaurant. You don't listen to all 50 conversations happening around you with equal attention.
Well, unless you're terribly bored on the date.
Huh, right. But normally, you prioritize the person sitting across from you. You constantly sift the world through a value structure.
And a stable representation of that habitual prioritization is what the source calls character.
Yes. And a character in motion is a story.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Wait, so the source is arguing that fiction is more true than fact, that stories are better maps than science.
It's a paradox, right?
Hmm.
But the expert synthesis here is that fiction isn't falsehood. It's a distillation.
Like boiling something down to its core.
Exactly. A great movie villain isn't a fake person.
Hmm.
It's the purified essence of 10 real-world villains crammed into one archetype. Therefore, the deepest stories, which the speaker defines as religious stories, are the ultimate abstractions of human character and moral navigation.
So they aren't meant to be read as literal Wikipedia articles of historical facts. They are highly condensed behavioral maps.
Precisely. Which brings us to the specific map the source zeroes in on, the story of Abraham.
Right, the Abrahamic blueprint. And I love how he frames this because he completely shatters this stoic, flawless image we have of ancient patriarchs. When we first meet Abraham, he's 75 years old and he's still living at home with his wealthy father.
The speaker literally characterizes it as the ultimate failure to launch.
Yes, a 75-year-old basement dweller. It's so funny, but also really tragic. He has everything provided for him. It's total infantile satiation.
And that leads to a deep critique of utopia. Because modern people often say they just want to be comfortable. They want everything provided.
But the source brings in Dostoevsky here, right?
Right. Dostoevsky noted that if humans were given everything, like hot tubs, unlimited cakes, endless economic security and reproduction, they would instantly smash it all.
Just so something interesting would happen.
Exactly. Because infantile satiation is not what human beings are built for. We are built for a gradient. We are built for romantic adventure.
This reminds me so much of modern video games. Like, if you're playing a game and you turn on God mode, where you have infinite health, infinite resources, and you can't be hurt, the game becomes incredibly boring within like 5 minutes.
Because there's no stakes.
Exactly. We need the struggle to find meaning. If you remove the possibility of failure, you remove the point of playing.
And the speaker ties this into a fascinating concept about maternal sacrifice. He says a true mother doesn't shelter her child from all harm. That just makes them weak and dependent. A good mother prepares her children to be snake handlers.
Oh, wow, snake handlers. That's a great image.
Right. Real security isn't being sheltered in a padded room. It's being courageous and awake. It's being highly competent so you can handle the danger when it comes.
So how does God fit into this blueprint?
In the Abrahamic story, God represents the voice of adventure. It's the impulse calling the unwilling out of their comfort zone. And faith isn't just cognitive agreement. Faith is enacted when you actually pack your bags and step out of the door.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question about the anatomy of a calling. How do you know what your adventure is? Like, how does this voice actually manifest in your daily life? I'm not hearing booming voices from the clouds telling me to move to the desert.
That's a very fair question. And the source answers it by looking at the story of Moses, which is framed as an expansion of Abraham's journey. Moses was a shepherd. And the speaker notes that a shepherd is a caretaker who fights off wolves, making him the ancient prototype for a leader.
Right, and Moses goes off the beaten path to investigate the burning bush.
And this is where the speaker drops a really profound psychological insight. He equates the burning bush to human interest. He claims that you do not choose your interests.
Wait, really?
Think about it. Try to force yourself to be interested in something deeply boring.
Like reading the text code.
Right. You can force yourself to read it, but you can't force the actual neurochemical sensation of interest. Your interests have autonomy. They choose you.
Okay, that is so true. I can fall down a Wikipedia rabbit hole at 2 a.m. learning about ancient Roman plumbing and feel totally energized, but looking at a spreadsheet for 5 minutes makes me want to take a nap.
Exactly. And the speaker argues that the burning bush represents metabolism in life. It has this hallucinogenic intensity, like falling in love. It burns, but it isn't consumed.
But wait, can't our interests lead us astray? Like, what if I'm interested in something destructive? What if someone has a deep autonomous interest in gambling or, I don't know, plotting revenge?
And that is the exact danger. Interest alone is chaotic. That's why the expert synthesis here points out the critical interplay of calling and conscience. The calling, or the interest, pulls you forward out of stasis. but the conscience keeps you on the straight and narrow path.
Ah, so it's a balance.
Right. The voice of God is characterized as I am that I am, the spirit of being and becoming. By following a pure interest deeply enough, while being hemmed in by your conscience, you hit the bedrock of reality.
And there's that detail about Moses taking off his shoes.
Yes, shedding his old identity and embracing humility. You have to take off your conceptual framework and admit you don't know everything before you can learn from reality.
So, you find your calling, you humble yourself, and you step out. But following your calling isn't a joyride, right? The source talks a lot about the pain of progress. It requires a brutal toll.
It really does. To get to the promised land, something has to be left behind. You have to sacrifice. The promised land, Canaan, is the future. But currently, it's inhabited by hedonistic or tyrannical forces, which the text identifies as the descendants of Cain.
So you have to confront that.
Yes. And if you act with true character, these obstacles will scatter before you. But the deepest battle is internal. This is where the lecture introduces the concept of the flaming sword.
Which is such a powerful image.
In Genesis, Eden is guarded by cherubim with a flaming sword that turns every which way. The speaker asks, what is a flaming sword? Well, a sword cuts, and fire burns dead wood.
And he claims most of us are mostly dead wood, right?
He says most of us are 95% dead wood. We cling to pathological habits, resentments, arrogant assumptions. To move forward into the future, we have to voluntarily let the sword cut away and burn the unworthy parts of ourselves.
That sounds incredibly painful.
It is. This is why enlightenment is resisted. The speaker gives this great example. Have you ever been in an argument, a really heated argument, and suddenly you realize you are completely, undeniably wrong?
Oh, it's the worst feeling. Your stomach drops, you feel flush.
Right. And sometimes people even cry out of sheer frustration. The speaker says the tears you cry when admitting you are wrong are literally grief for the stupid part of you that has to die.
Oh, wow. That is heavy.
It's a
So, what does this all mean? I feel like this completely flips the script on modern self-improvement. It's not about just adding new habits or buying new courses. It's about voluntarily letting the worst parts of you die.
Exactly. And connecting it back to the beginning of our deep dive, the Auschwitz guard was somebody who completely refused to sacrifice his pride and comfort, which led to total malevolence. He sacrificed other people to save himself.
Right.
But Abraham sacrifices his ultimate comfort, which leads to a blessing for all families of the earth. The antidote to tyranny is voluntary individual sacrifice.
Man, what a journey today. We went from the chilling reality of human malevolence in a maximum security prison gym, realizing that we all have that capacity inside us.
To the realization that facts and science aren't enough to guide us out of that darkness.
Right, we need the ancient blueprint. We have to leave infantile comfort behind, heed the call of our deep interests, and face the painful, fiery, flaming sword to burn away our dead wood.
It's a redemptive call, but it demands everything. And I think it leaves us with a really lingering, provocative thought.
Lay it on us.
If the ultimate adventure requires sacrificing the parts of ourselves we love the most, our comfort, our pride, our dead wood, what happens to a modern culture that completely removes the concept of sacrifice from its definition of success?
Oh, that's a brilliant question.
If we are told we can have it all without giving anything up, are we inadvertently locking ourselves in Dostoevsky's hot tub, slowly going bad?
We are just marinating in infantile satiation, totally defenseless. Well, that is definitely something for all of you to chew on today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking for those burning bushes in your own life and have the courage to let the dead wood burn. We'll catch you next time.